All right, let's cut through the noise. We've all heard the legends, the raw, chest-thumping power of the 12-gauge shotgun. We've heard that unmistakable sound of a pump action racking a shell home, a sound they say is enough to make any home invader turn and run for the hills. And look, I'm not here to tell you that a shotgun isn't a useful tool for hunting, for pure versatility with its smorgasbord of shell types. It's a beast. For some folks in some situations, it is an absolutely phenomenal home defense weapon. But here's the cold, hard question you have to ask yourself, staring into the mirror at 3 a.m. Is it the right tool for you? Because today, we're going to drag the skeletons out of the closet. We're going to talk about the reasons a shotgun might not just be a bad choice for you, but a catastrophic one, and why you might be infinitely better served by something else when the glass breaks in the dead of night. Now, everyone loves to sing the praises of the shotgun. It's brutally powerful. It's got an intimidation factor that's off the charts, and you can usually get into a solid one without breaking the bank. But those pros come attached to some massive, glaring asterisks that are tied directly to the person holding the weapon. The first gorilla in the room is the sheer physics of the platform. Shotguns are long, heavy, and frankly a total pig to maneuver compared to a modern carbine or especially a handgun. We can't all be running a tricked-out 14-inch Remington 870 SPS. The reality is, countless successful home defenses have been carried out with Grandpa's 28-inch barreled duck gun. And while it gets the job done, trying to navigate the tight confines of a modern home with that thing is like trying to pilot a battleship through a canal. Every corner, every doorway becomes a tactical nightmare. And this is where the problem gets personal. If you're not built like a 6'4" linebacker, if you're built like my wife, who's 5'2" and maybe weighs 110 pounds soaking wet, that weapon becomes an anchor. It becomes a liability. See, everyone has this Hollywood fantasy of a home defense situation. They picture themselves clearing rooms like a Navy SEAL, stacking up on doors, a true Tier 1 operator in their pajamas. That is a complete and utter fantasy. The vast majority of home defense encounters are brutally simple and terrifyingly static. It's you, barricaded in a bedroom, on the phone with 911, with a weapon pointed squarely at the door, waiting. You could be holding that position for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or what feels like an eternity. Now, imagine holding a 10-pound shotgun at the ready for that long. Your muscles will scream, your arms will tremble, and your aim will turn to garbage. In that moment, you'd trade all the power in the world for a weapon you can actually keep on target. You might be better off bracing that gun on a piece of furniture with your family huddled behind you. And if you do have to move, that extra length is a killer. An 18-inch barrel, which is about the shortest you can legally get on a shotgun, is still 2 inches longer than a standard 16-inch AR-15. 2 inches doesn't sound like much, until it's the 2 inches that snag on a door frame and give your position away. But the real enemy is the weight, especially that front-heavy bias of a loaded shotgun. Holding that weapon up, steady, for any real length of time is a feat of strength. An 8-inch pistol caliber carbine or a lightweight 11.5-inch AR-15 pistol is a feather by comparison. It's a weapon that empowers someone like my wife instead of overwhelming them. Hell, people dismiss handguns for home defense, but if that's the tool you can use effectively, the one you can guarantee hits with, then it's the right tool. The caliber doesn't mean a damn thing if you can't hit the target. If you're so exhausted from holding the weapon that you can't even keep the muzzle pointed in the right direction, you've already lost the fight. Now that brings me to my second point, and it's a direct consequence of the first, recoil. And before you jump in the comments, no, this isn't just about faster follow-up shots, though you'd be partially right. The true, insidious danger of heavy recoil is that people simply will not train with a tool that punishes them. Think about it. You've got that 14-inch short barrel shotgun, that badass Remington 870. You've loaded it up with the top-tier Federal Flight Control buckshot for home defense. But when was the last time you actually ran that ammo at the range? Be honest. The answer for most people is never. And that creates two catastrophic failures. First, you have no idea if your gun will even reliably cycle that specific defensive load. And second, you have zero proficiency with the weapon system you've bet your life on. I see it all the time. Folks who swear by the shotgun for home defense are often the least trained shooters I meet. And that is a recipe for disaster, because a shotgun, contrary to popular myth, is an expert's weapon. You're talking about a platform with brutal recoil, severely limited capacity, and one that's a nightmare to handle in tight spaces. Mastering that combination takes an immense amount of training. And don't get me wrong, hand me a Benelli M4 and I'll be a very happy man, but I've sent thousands of rounds downrange with them. When I bring new shooters out, people who haven't spent their lives behind a scattergun, I see the misery on their faces. I see them getting hammered by the recoil because they don't know the proper push-pull technique. They don't know how to lock the stock into their shoulder pocket. Their stance is all wrong. The result? They don't train. They don't learn the intricate details of their own weapon. They don't know how many rounds it can fire before it gets sluggish and needs a cleaning. They don't know the proper way to run the action without short-stroking the pump. They can't find the safety by feel in the pitch black of a hallway at 2 a.m. All of those things become second nature, pure muscle memory after you've fired thousands of rounds. That kind of training volume is just easier to achieve with a weapon that doesn't feel like a controlled explosion going off on your shoulder. Give that same 5'4" wife the choice between a 3.5-pound X-Star EP9 that takes easy-to-load Glock mags and is genuinely fun to shoot, or that Benelli M4 loaded with buckshot that leaves her shoulder bruised and aching. Which one do you think she's going to practice with? She'll be a surgeon with the X-Star because she knows it inside and out. She knows how to load it, how to run it, and most importantly, she can put rounds exactly where they need to go, time after time. And that brings me to the most common failure point I see on the range with these guns: short stroking the pump. This is the Achilles heel of the pump-action shotgun. Now, these guns are legendary for their reliability, and any seasoned instructor will tell you that because we've run the pump 100,000 times. It's ingrained in our DNA. But for someone who hasn't built that muscle memory, doing it under the paralyzing stress of a real-life threat is a completely different ballgame. It's a lot like running a lever-action rifle. It's frighteningly easy to bring that fore end 3/4 of the way back, slam it forward, and suddenly you've induced a malfunction that has completely taken you out of the fight. Now, compound that with the heavy recoil you're not used to, the sheer weight of the weapon, and your complete lack of training. You're now facing a critical jam that you have absolutely no idea how to clear. That's not a tool, it's a liability. Of course, all of this can be overcome with training, but if there are platforms that are inherently easier for you to master, why wouldn't you choose them? If you can handle the weight and recoil but hate the pump, sure, a semi-automatic like an A300, a 1301, or that Benelli M4 is a fantastic choice. But even they can't solve the next problem, a problem inherent to the ammunition itself: the plastic shells. The plastic shells themselves have always been a nagging question mark in the gun community. You'll hear guys on both sides of the fence, some swearing it's a non-issue, others treating it like a ticking time bomb. But there have been studies, real data, that point to shell deformation. Leave your shotgun loaded for a year, maybe 2, and the constant force from the magazine spring can physically warp those plastic hulls. That deformation can be just enough to cause a catastrophic malfunction when you need the gun to work most, a problem that simply doesn't exist with brass-cased ammunition. Now, I've never personally seen it happen, but it's a known variable you need to be aware of. People also worry about the magazine spring itself weakening over time, but honestly, that's a cheap fix. A new spring for an 870 or a Mossberg 500 costs like $5. Just replace it and sleep easy. But here's a problem no $5 spring can fix: the absolute necessity of a weapon light. I'm going to make a bold statement here. I would rather face a home invader with a Glock 19 equipped with a weapon light than a 12-gauge shotgun without one. Why? Because positively identifying your target isn't just important, it's the single most critical rule of engagement. It's the difference between neutralizing a violent threat and tragically shooting your own kid stumbling to the kitchen for a glass of water. You have to know what you're shooting at. A handheld light is good, and room lights are better, but a dedicated weapon-mounted light is non-negotiable. Because when you're jolted from a dead sleep by the sound of shattering glass, your adrenaline-dumping, terrified brain is only going to have the bandwidth to do one thing: grab the gun. If the light is part of the gun, you have the light. It's the same reason you put a shell carrier on the gun itself. You grab the gun, you get the ammo and the light. And home invasions almost always happen at night, in the dark. Mounting a light on an AR-15 or a modern handgun is child's play. On a pump-action shotgun, it's often a nightmare of proprietary 4Ns, janky Picatinny rail sections, and awkward ergonomics that make activating the switch a clumsy, unnatural act. It's just plain easier to fight in the dark with an AR or a pistol. Then there's the issue of capacity. Most shotguns are holding between 5 and 8 rounds. In a world where a standard AR-15 magazine holds 30, and you can easily run a 33-round mag in a Glock, 5 shots feels terrifyingly low. Now, the counter-argument is that with 9 pellets of buckshot per shell, a 5-round tube technically holds 45 projectiles. You're just firing 9 at once. This means you don't have a lack of projectiles, but a profound lack of chances. Your accuracy has to be perfect. And this brings us right back to the central theme: training. You have to make every single shot count. This is where we dismantle the most dangerous myth about shotguns: the idea that the spread means you don't have to aim. That is a complete and utter fantasy peddled by people who have only ever seen shotguns in movies. The reality is that your pattern only spreads about 1 inch for every yard of distance. At a typical 5-yard home defense engagement, you're throwing a pattern that's roughly 5 inches wide, the size of your fist. You absolutely have to aim that weapon with precision. And if you don't train, you won't be able to. The magical spread isn't going to save you. Now let's take that spread and turn it into your worst nightmare. What happens in a hostage situation? The threat has one of your family members. It's your wife, your kid, maybe even your dog. That monster has a gun to Spike's head. Do you really want to send a 5-inch cloud of lead in that direction? In that moment, you would trade all the raw power of that buckshot for the surgical precision of a single rifle round. A rifle is infinitely superior for a shot that requires that level of absolute certainty. People will say, just aim high and to the left. Are you really willing to gamble your loved one's life on at least half the pattern hitting the bad guy? I'm not. Finally, let's talk about overpenetration. I hear it constantly. The truth is, any round powerful enough to reliably stop a human threat is powerful enough to go through drywall if you miss every single one. You have to know your home. You have to pick your fields of fire. Maybe you need to take a knee and aim up. Maybe you need to aim for the pelvic girdle so a miss goes into the floor, not the next apartment. Ammunition choice matters. Yes, buckshot overpenetrates. Number 4 buck is a little better. But a 5.56 round, especially a hollow point or frangible load, can actually be a safer choice in terms of penetration through multiple interior walls compared to buckshot. So, after all this, is the shotgun a terrible choice? Absolutely not. If you dedicate yourself to it, if you train relentlessly, it is one of the most devastatingly effective close quarters weapons ever designed. The average shots fired in a home defense shooting is 1. The statistical fatality rate for a shotgun blast to the torso is a staggering 95%. 1 correct shot is almost always enough to end the fight. The point of all this isn't to scare you away from the shotgun. It's to force you to respect it, to understand its shortcomings so you can train to overcome them or decide that another platform is better suited for you. Because at the end of the day, it's the operator, not the tool. Hand me a Glock 34, an SBR, or a 22-inch duck gun, I'm going to make it work. Train with your gun. Know it inside and out, and you'll be just fine.